I think the major misperception in the Western world on Islam is that it's equal to peace and that it can be reconciled with liberal democracy. The fanaticism within Islam and its basic tenets is something that's underestimated in the West. And I think that Western leaders, political, intellectual, religious leaders, the sooner they recognize that faith, the Islamic faith, needs to go through a process of reformation and enlightenment, and that it's going to come at a very high price, the better. The sooner they do that, the better. As long as these leaders go around saying Islam is peace, that is, I think, a major misconception. It's also a very self-destructive one. I think we should make a distinction between Islam and Muslims. What I'm trying to do is to say all over the world we can identify with each other as human beings. That is the basic glue. The fact that you're an individual human being and I'm an individual human being, that's where our commonality or common strength lies in, and common interest. Islam, if we view it as one of the philosophies or political theories or ideas produced by human beings throughout history, just one of them, and view it, scrutinize it, criticize it, as we have done with all other doctrines, religious or secular, then we may be able from the West, now I'm using we as in someone who's westernized, convince Muslims to make a different choice and to reform their faith first by acknowledging that there are things wrong with their faith. So our goal should not be to preserve Islam. Our goal should be the common human. We are humans, so Muslims are humans. They're not first, you're born just as a baby in Pakistan or in Saudi Arabia or in Yemen or in a Muslim community here. If we emphasize that, then I think we can make that change. And that involves two things. That involves learning to distinguish between who is an enemy and who is a friend. But before you decide who is an enemy and who is a friend, you yourself have to decide, what do you stand for? What are your own set of ideas that you feel are superior to that of Islam? And are you willing to defend and die for your own ideas of freedom and humanity and humanism as much as the fanatics are willing to die for their own? I think that's such a good question because it just shows how experimental it all was. A process of trial and error, and it's still the case. For instance, and this is a point of criticism, there is no consensus in the United States on who the enemy is, on whether to really say it's Islam or it's a perversion of a form of Islam. Is it Wahhabism, Salafism, or is it basic Islam? Who should we ally with strategically? In other words, the approach has been very much strategic. There are people in the United States, including this administration, who are waking up to the fact that there is a battle of ideas going on, but they're too shy to voice what the ideas are. Another point of criticism, and that's not only towards this administration, but I've heard it all over the place, is this desire to avoid Saudi Arabia as a culprit of the state that's not only financing terrorism but also financing the ideology behind the terror acts. I think it was a mistake to declare a war on terror. Terror is just a tactic, and it shows how strategic the whole approach is towards what's going on. Another mistake on both sides of the Atlantic is that if we just appease them, if we just understand what they want from us and we give it to them, they might not be so bad to us, so they might forgive us. I think those are mistakes that were made. But again, I'll come back to the distinction between Europe and America, and it seems as if America is learning much faster than Europe. And by learning, I mean waking up to the fact that it is Islam, not necessarily all Muslims, but Islam as a set of ideas, and that can mean very disastrous military action, which is, for every politician, it is a terrible decision to take, to say we are going to war, or we are going to do something destructive, or we are going to take an unpopular action. And Americans seem to be much more courageous in making that decision. They did during the Second World War and later than the Europeans, who have. I think the European leadership at this point is really self-destroying, and I say this because of the approach to Iran.